Chapter 3 in your text, and from the ACSM, it comes from a bunch of different chapters. So, uh, I pick and choose. Generally, as an initial comment, especially for this first section, most of the stuff is coming out of your Hayward text. The ACSM text has the same material. It's pretty similar. It's just the way that they put it together. So I just kept it pretty more consistent with the Hayward information. So what is your responsibility as an exercise specialist, exercise physiologist? They also will call you a personal trainer. I personally prefer the term exercise physiologist. One of your goals is to educate the clients, teach them how to exercise. So you're not just leading them through exercise, but you should also be actively teaching them how to exercise properly. You'll conduct health screenings and exercise testing in general. We went over that partially in the previous chapter. Obviously, you'll design exercise programs. You'll critique the clients or the patient's exercise performance. So how are they moving? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? And you'll motivate the client. So you'll definitely be working with people. And if you don't like working with people, then this is probably not the job for you. Oops. No, come on. There we go. So physical fitness, it's a little different than physical activity and exercise. Physical fitness is the ability to perform occupational, recreational, and daily activities without undue fatigue. We'll go into the different components of fitness in a little bit, but you could look at fitness a lot of different ways. You could look at fitness a lot of different ways. So this breaks it down to the different components of fitness. This is from the ACSM text. It's actually from Chapter 1. So you have the cardiorespiratory endurance. What I like what I like to do with these terms and definitions is I like to give like a more technical definition, and then I also like to give more practical definitions. So, but these are some of the components. One of the things that's listed later is balance, and things like balance, agility, coordination, power, reaction time, speed, core stability. We kind of lump them all together. And one thing that I will say as you go through developing exercise prescriptions and looking at these different components is looking at the overlap between various areas. So if you're looking at exercises, does this exercise work on just pure strength, or does it also have a core component, a balance component associated with it? So sometimes with the activities, you can double dip between various activities to cover various components. So sometimes you think you're not reaching your fitness goals, or you're not really completing the exercise recommendation, but in reality you are, and that will be a pretty big theme as we continue. So aerobic or cardiovascular fitness, they're used interchangeably. Ability of the heart, lungs, and blood vessels to supply oxygen to muscles in order to do work. That's a technical definition. I don't think people really understand what that definition is. So some of the more practical examples or definition: how well can you run or complete sustained activity like running, walking, cycling? Individuals with a high VO2, VO2 is the measure, the volume of oxygen you consume, typically in milliliters per kilogram per minute. But the individuals with high VO2s are the elite runners, cyclists, swimmers, etc. If you have a low VO2, it's associated with a higher risk of coronary artery disease as well as other chronic diseases. So it's not just, oh, you got a high VO2, that's great. But if you have a low VO2, that's a problem. That's not a good thing. So you want to test individuals and see what their VO2 is, and there's a lot of different ways to test them to kind of put them into a generalized proper category. Musculoskeletal fitness, ability of the muscle and skeleton to do work. They have three aspects. Muscular strength is your maximal ability to produce force or tension. Typically, we look at that as the 1 repetition maximal lift. What's the most weight that you can lift once with proper form? Muscular endurance is the ability to maintain submaximal force over an extended period of time. And you just have to tease out. I think these definitions and these terms are pretty easy to understand, but you kind of have to tease out what they're talking about. We're talking about something like push-ups, and you think about running or walking. How long can you walk for? You can walk all day. You can walk for an extremely long period of time, hours. Even if you're a decent runner, you can run 20, 30 minutes without much problem. But how long can you do push-ups for? If you're great, or pull-ups, if you're great at push-ups or pull-ups, how long can you do it for? Maybe 2 minutes. So this is the type of thing that we're looking at. Is you're doing a submax effort because you're doing more than one repetition, but it's not something that can be sustained for a long period of time, like running or walking. So the bone strength, we deal with that less. I mean, you deal with it a little bit for osteoporosis. Body weight and body composition. Body weight is simply the mass. Typically, we go off of body composition. So the key here is the term percent fat. There it is at the bottom. So we want to know what is the percent of fat of the individual. A lot of times we use body mass index. Body mass index is fine for large-scale studies when you're looking at the population. It generally does work, but when you're looking especially at a college-age population, you could have people that are fit but have a relatively higher body mass index. So if you're carrying a lot of muscle, which the way most, especially the men, train nowadays, they're doing a fair amount of strength training. They'll put on muscle mass to get into an overweight category or even obese category, but you're still healthy as possible. When you look at it from a general population perspective, most people that have a body mass index over 25 do need to lose some weight. If you have a body mass index over 30, you definitely need to lose some weight. So, yeah, you guys are in some of you, the men especially, could be in a small subset of the population, but you're really not representative of the larger group. For women, you see some women, it's rare to see a woman that has a body mass index over 30 that's a healthy weight, but you will see some women that have a body mass index over 25 that are still of healthy weight. Flexibility, the key term here to remember for flexibility is range of motion. So it's the ability of the joints to move through the entire range of motion. We'll have separate sections on all of these later. So that could be limited by bony structures of the joint, the size and strength related to the musculature, ligaments, also fat. But really, just because you have a lot of muscle, you could still be very flexible and have a lot of muscle. So there's a guy on YouTube. He was on America's Got Talent. He was doing splits and all sorts of things, and he had a large amount of muscle mass. I remember seeing a World's Strongest Man competition where one of the guys did a split as well. You had Jean-Claude Van Damme. He was also famous for doing his splits. You can check him on YouTube. Look at some of his old movies. They were fun. Bloodsport was a goodie. So anyway, but he was somebody that was relatively fit, had a fair amount of muscle. Now, he wasn't very, very big, but even some of the people that are bigger, you could be fairly flexible and have a lot of muscle mass. So this issue of becoming muscle-bound, which you've heard in the past, is not really accurate. And then issues associated with connective tissue, and that's what we're going to see the most times, that the muscles and the ligaments are contracted, and they don't have enough ability they're just tight. So balance, core, neuromotor, I put these all together. A lot of times people will use them interchangeably. It's the ability to keep your center of gravity within a base of support. There's different ways that can happen. You can maintain a static position. You could be performing voluntary movements, which is more what we're doing in life. We're doing a movement, and how do you stay balanced? How do you keep from falling, in essence? So it's definitely a huge, huge, huge issue. Reacting to an external disturbance, so you walk off a curb, how do you get your balance back? It could also be called core stability, neuromotor. There's technical differences between all of them, but they work together. You have functional balance, ability to do tasks of daily living, and with all of these, there's a continuum. Some of the chapters in the future will deal with that continuum. But you have people, you have children. Children have great flexibility, but low levels of balance, low levels of coordination. You have the growth and development. You have your age where you're pretty much at your peak levels, or potentially at your peak levels, or near your peak levels. And then you have people like myself who are on the downward slide. So, I mean, my fitness is not as good as it used to be, but I'm holding on for dear life. So I want to maintain the fitness and what I have. So you got to kind of think about these things through that continuum. And then as we age, you want to just maintain what you have. And, though you're not going to be a great athlete, you could still do your tasks of daily living. You guys don't really care about doing your tasks of daily living. You don't even think about it. It's just normal. Unless you have a disability or you have an orthopedic injury, to do your tasks of daily living is just, you don't even think about it. You take it for granted. But if you're an older individual, that becomes more of a much, much bigger issue, just taking care of yourself, grooming yourself, making sure that you don't need help. Being able to drive, things like that. So, and balance kind of fits into that, because we think of balance and balance being an issue for older individuals and issues of falling, but there's really a continuum at all different levels of all of these. So examples: picking up an object from the floor, dressing, turning to look at somebody behind you. That's it.